What if the safety label is doing more work than the safety itself? Anthropic has built its entire brand around being the responsible AI lab, the one that takes risks seriously. But responsible according to whom, and measured against what standard? Today we are looking at Anthropic AI safety claims and asking whether what gets called a safety feature is actually selective enforcement dressed up in careful language. To be clear about what this video is and is not. This is not an argument that AI safety research is pointless or that AI companies should have no restrictions at all. The argument is narrower and more specific. A rule is only a safety feature if it is applied consistently, grounded in a coherent definition of harm, and not shaped primarily by what makes the company look good. Anthropic published a document called the Model Specification. It is long, carefully written, and genuinely interesting. The document lays out how Claude is supposed to reason about harm, who Claude treats as its principal hierarchy, and what kinds of outputs it will never produce no matter what. On paper, this looks like a serious attempt at a rule-based system. The model spec divides behaviors into two categories. Hard-coded behaviors that never change regardless of instructions, and soft-coded behaviors that operators and users can adjust. Hard-coded refusals include things like helping create biological weapons or generating content that sexualizes minors. Nobody serious is arguing with those. The friction starts in the soft-coded zone, where the line between safety and editorial preference gets much harder to see. Here are three specific cases where Claude refuses or hedges in ways that are hard to square with the stated harm framework. First, Claude will decline to write persuasive political content on certain topics even when the user is transparent that the content is for debate practice. The refusal cites potential for misuse, but nearly identical persuasive writing tasks on other topics go through without friction. Second, Claude will add unsolicited warnings to factual descriptions of legal activities if those activities carry cultural controversy in some regions. The same model will describe other legal but similarly debated activities with no warning attached. The difference does not map onto any harm metric in the public documentation. It maps much more cleanly onto which topics attract media criticism. Third, Claude applies different thresholds for historical violence depending on which historical event is being discussed. Detailed accounts of some events are summarized with clinical distance while accounts of other events are rendered with fuller narrative detail. Historians who have run these tests informally have noted that the pattern tracks political sensitivity more than it tracks the severity of the content. Now compare those refusals to what Claude will do freely. Claude will help write marketing copy that makes strong emotional appeals. It will assist with legal strategies that favor one party over another. It will generate content that could reinforce existing commercial biases if that content is framed as business assistance. These outputs carry real-world consequences too, but they do not trigger the same caution flags. Independent researchers have run more systematic tests. A team at one AI evaluation nonprofit prompted Claude and several competing models with matched question pairs where the only variable was the political or cultural framing of the topic. Claude showed measurably higher refusal rates on one side of several contested political topics compared to functionally equivalent prompts framed from the other direction. Anthropic has not publicly disputed the methodology. A separate group of security researchers tested how Claude handles dual-use technical information. The finding was that refusal behavior correlated more with whether a topic had appeared in recent news coverage about AI risks than with the actual technical danger of the information. Topics that became high-profile after a news cycle got stricter treatment than older, equally dangerous topics that had not been in the news recently. Anthropic has raised over $7 billion. That capital comes from corporate investors who have their own reputational and regulatory concerns. This does not mean every safety decision is corrupt. It means the incentive structure makes selective enforcement predictable. When the cost of a bad headline outweighs the cost of a false refusal, a rational company tightens restrictions around the headline risk, not around the actual harm map. There is also the regulatory environment to consider. Governments in the United States, the European Union, and the United Kingdom are all moving toward AI oversight frameworks. A company that can credibly say its model refused to do something is in a stronger position before a regulator than one that cannot. Safety labels, in this context, also function as legal and political positioning. That does not make them false, but it does mean they are serving more than one purpose. Anthropic is not unique in this. OpenAI, Google DeepMind, and Meta have all been accused of applying safety restrictions that seem to correlate with reputation management. What makes Anthropic a sharper case study is the explicitness of its safety branding. The company has made safety its core differentiator in a way the other labs have not, which means the gap between claim and practice is more visible when it appears. To be fair to Anthropic, running a frontier AI lab without any safety restrictions would be genuinely reckless. The people working on alignment and interpretability at Anthropic are doing serious work that the field needs. The critique here is not that safety work is fake. The critique is that the marketing of safety has outrun the rigor of the safety standards, and that inconsistency in application undermines the credibility of the whole framework. There is a concrete cost to inconsistent enforcement that often gets skipped in these discussions. When a model refuses a legitimate request because the topic looks politically sensitive, the user learns that the model is not a reliable tool for certain domains. Researchers, journalists, and educators who need to engage with difficult material route around the model or stop using it. The refusal does not eliminate the information need. It just removes a potentially safer, more transparent way of accessing it. So how do you actually tell a real safety feature from reputation management? A few markers. Real safety features have written, public criteria that determine when the rule applies. Real safety features are tested symmetrically across groups and topics. Real safety features have an appeals or feedback mechanism so the criteria can be corrected when they produce absurd results. And real safety features cost the company something, in lost use cases or lost revenue, rather than only costing users. By those markers, some of what Anthropic calls safety clears the bar. The hard-coded refusals around weapons of mass destruction and child safety content are clear, public, symmetric, and genuinely costly in edge cases. A number of the soft-coded defaults do not clear the same bar. They are vague, applied unevenly, and track news cycles more than they track documented harm pathways. What would better practice look like? Transparency reports with actual refusal data broken down by category. Public red teaming results rather than internal summaries. A clear distinction in the documentation between hard safety requirements and business risk management preferences. And a genuine willingness to be corrected by external researchers when the data shows inconsistency. None of these are technically difficult. They are organizationally and politically difficult. The broader point is that the AI industry is at a stage where the language of safety is being established as the dominant frame for every policy decision. That makes it critical to build habits of scrutiny now, before the frame is so fixed that questioning it reads as being anti-safety rather than pro-rigor. Precision in language is not a small thing when the language is going to shape regulation, liability, and public understanding for the next decade. If this video changed how you think about AI safety labels, or if it pushed back on something you already believed, hit the like button. It is the main signal that tells this channel to keep making this kind of analysis. Subscribe if you want the next video the moment it lands. Next week we are looking at how OpenAI rewrote its own safety guidelines and what the diff between the old and new versions actually reveals. That one is worth your time.